Hey there, nerdpreneurs! Welcome back to Market Like a Nerd, and get ready to geek out with me because today I'm joined by sales superstar Melissa Pharr. Oh, that rhymed! Yay! Hey, Melissa.
Hey there, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of rhymes, so I'm glad that we made that magic
I
right at the
know!
beginning.
It wasn't even planned. Yay! So, welcome to Nerdpreneur Nation. We're stoked to have you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
All right, now, guys, for everyone who is listening, today we're going to be talking about sales secrets that made Melissa millions. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Melissa, and then we'll talk about her tips for the sales secrets that made her millions. Melissa Pharr began her entrepreneurial journey in September of 2009 and has launched several businesses since then. It wasn't until August of 2014 that she landed on her dime as an online business and wealth creation coach. Since then, Melissa has quickly grown her business from zero to a seven-figure online empire. Woohoo! She has made it her mission to bring feminine financial freedom and empowerment to other powerful, passionate, and smart women who have no idea how to begin making the necessary money to go from simply surviving to absolutely thriving.
Nice.
Yes. So that is Melissa's overview of her story and her biography. But guys, come on, we like to get to know the real people on the show. So before we get into the meat of today's episode, let's have some fun. Melissa, are you ready?
Yeah, shoot 'em at me, man.
All right. So you grew up in small town Idaho, but you moved to NYC. So cabs or Ubers?
I don't want to get political, but I'm definitely a cab person now.
Ah, yes. New York style cheesecake or huckleberry pie?
Oh, I'm lactose intolerant and it can get pretty nasty pretty fast if I have cheesecake. Plus, in Idaho, I used to pick huckleberries.
Aww.
So I'm going to have to go with huckleberries because that's like super nostalgic for me.
Aww,
for sure. Like on a mountainside, really serious business. It takes a long time to pick a pail of huckleberries, just so you know. That's like a day's work.
Oh,
serious
interesting.
Business.
I've never picked huckleberries, but I have I've gone crabbing, and getting bushels of crabs all day is a lot of work. I don't know.
Oh wow, I've never done that.
Yeah. Now, okay. Who survived the zombie apocalypse? The New York City barista or small town Idaho postman?
Oh man, I like instantly put myself in there. I wanted to answer I do before you gave me those options.
I hope so.
Darn it. I definitely, my husband and I have conversations about if we're in apocalypse, I was like, you would die and I would have to leave you.
Aww.
And like, if I was going to die, I expect you to run away from me. And he's like, okay, I promise. Even though I would.
We have conversations about this too in my house, and my husband doesn't think that it's possible that there would be a zombie apocalypse. So I'm like, all right, yeah, the survivalist, I'll be fine, but I don't know about you.
Mine doesn't either, but I still ask the question all the time. I have this conversation. So I think, that's a really hard one. Since I've turned into an East Coaster at this point in my life, I'm going to have to go with the barista.
Yeah, that would be my bet too. Would you rather spend every day, all day on sales calls and be rich, or have someone else do your calls but never make a friggin' dime?
Oh, well, that's easy. I mean, I have to be honest. I don't think that I would want to be on sales calls all day long, even though I love them. But like, I do love them.
Yeah.
So definitely all day on sales calls. Let's do it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, finally, and most importantly, have you ever considered having a 70s themed brand and creating a program called Far Out Sales or something like that? Because every time I hear your name, I'm like, that's far out.
Well, when I was in 6th grade, I ran for president and I wrote, if you want this school to go far, Pharr, vote for Mel. And guess who won president, y'all?
Oh, you are such a dork.
Of a little Catholic school, 6th grade. Yeah, man. That was an interesting thing. But so yes, I have used that. But I actually had a really good name. It was called something about like wasted. I don't know, it was something about like drinking and having like huge launches. And I was talking with a bunch of my friends about the title of this hilarious webinar because we'd just done like this really intense training with our coach. And she was like, you've got to get your webinar titles right. And so I made this like seriously offensive title. I wish I could remember it because I definitely share it, but I digress.
All right. Sounds good. That was so much fun. Thank you. It's time to get down to business though, right? Good. So Melissa, you told me that you were going to share with us today about the sales secrets that made you millions, 7-figure sales secrets. So let's dive in. Can you get a little OCD with us? Break it down into the 3 or 5 main steps or tips that you have for us today.
Definitely. I'm a lot of a nerd and love organization and steps, so we can totally do that. I wanted to share sales secrets because it's really the first thing that I got known for anyway. But I think there's just a couple tips about sales that can make a huge difference. And I'm actually going to broaden it out a little bit more about just, getting clients in general, because I know people love that. So I'll start with my first sales tip. Actually, I was just writing a blog about it before we started this interview, which is that, 90% of the women that I talk to on the phone are terrified of being salesy. It's like the issue that I run into all the time. They don't want to be like a used, saleswoman person. So, used car saleswoman. So I think what a lot of us have been taught in sales, and maybe one of the reasons we feel that way, is because I've gone through like sales trainings before where I almost felt like I was supposed to get on the phone and like try to be someone's friend to build that trust and make them feel comfortable at the beginning and establish rapport, and not make it seem like a sales call. If anyone's picking up what I'm putting down, like I think a lot of us feel like maybe that's the best way to go about it. But it's really interesting because like almost 100% of those 90% of women who are worried about being bait and switchy approach calls that way. And what we're really doing when we do that is setting ourselves up for a bait and switch, because we're not really, first of all, being clear about the fact that this is a sales call. And so when we like make that offer at the end, it's like, surprise, pay me money now,
yes.
And in addition to that, especially, I don't know if you're a coach like I am for everyone listening, or just a service-based online entrepreneur, but for me in coaching as well, it's like you want to set up a really powerful dynamic with your client. And when you're coaching a client, they're not paying you to be their friend. They're paying you for either coaching or consulting. So I start my calls in a way that I think definitely changes the whole game and lets everybody relax. So I'll even walk through exactly what I say.
Yay.
So I could say something like, let's say I'm getting on the phone with you, Amanda, and I'm like, right from the beginning, instead of being like, oh, do our dogs have the same name? Oh, do you like food too? I'll be like, hey, Amanda, I'm really excited to talk with you today. I'm understanding you're interested in my one-on-one coaching package. Is that true?
Yes.
I give you a second to be like, wait, what? This is a sales call or whatever it is. And usually when people have filled out an application beforehand when they talk to me anyway, so they'll say, yeah, that's true. And you're like, oh. And after that, I'll say, well, that's good, because our call today is about figuring out whether or not it's a good fit for us to work together. Sound good? Again, checking in, and you get to be like, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm like, well, shoot, let's go. Okay. So that's how I would start it. And I never used to start my calls that way. I used to be kind of like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, maybe we can talk about your business a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do my calls in a very similar way. It's not the exact same not the exact same verbiage, but in essence, we're both doing the same thing, which is we're getting clear on the expectation and the structure of the call, or the intention of the call up front, rather than like trying to sneak it in at the end. And the reason why I do it is because I find that if people are getting on the phone with you, well, not only are they obviously in some way interested in working with you, but they want to know what it's like having you be their coach.
Exactly.
And in your coaching calls, you should always start maybe you don't do this, but you should always start coaching calls with stating the intention of the call, stating the desired outcome of the call, so that you're clear on what the focus of the conversation is. So treat these people just like their clients. Get clear in the very beginning on what the focus, the intention of the call is, and don't hide it.
Amen, sister. I do the same thing on my coaching calls as well. Well, I'll say, okay, what do you want to get out of the call? By the time this call is over, what's our outcome, right? And it's that, and it's also the fact that you want to take the role of, an expert, or at least position yourself as an expert, where you're coming in and it's very clear that you can hold a really good space for them to do the work that needs to be done along with you, right? So yeah, that's the exact wording that I use. And here's something you might be asking, well, what if they say no? What if they say, I didn't know this was a sales call, which is, well, I mean, actually, it's rarely happened to me because I have the system of an application beforehand, so I can screen if I need to. But the rare occasion where it does happen, here's a great response to. If someone says, well, I'm not really ready, or I don't have the money for this, or I don't whatever, no judgment whatsoever. But if you have a good application, that should take care of that. But if you don't, then what I would usually say is, no problem. But I do want to let you know this call is really reserved for people who are very serious about starting to work with a coach now. And so if you have any other questions about this program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and direct you to the website, and then you can contact our team when you're ready to have a conversation because you'd like to go ahead and begin coaching. And I say it really, really lovely, but the fact is, if I was going to offer a free coaching call or anything of the sort, then I would have marketed that,
Yeah.
and if that is happening to you a lot, it's probably, your marketing for what you're actually offering is most likely not clear. Your application beforehand, if you have one, may not be asking clear enough questions to vet these people. So you want to look there as well.
So you go for getting the right calls, not necessarily getting tons of calls, because there's some people who will mask that there's going to be a pitch, or they're going to say or they're basically going to dress up the call as if it is a coaching call and not be clear that it's really a sales call. It's a conversation about working together. And often I find that the people who are dressing up the call as if it is a coaching call, they're thinking like, oh, I'll just get tons of calls on my calendar and like the numbers will just work so that I'll make sales. What you're doing is you're going for quality. You're going for the right people. You're targeting very effectively to get the right people on the phone.
That's definitely true. I mean, a couple points about that. Yes, absolutely. I'm always trying to get like the most qualified lead, because I'd rather be on the phone with the right person and have a really genuine conversation that even takes a little while, especially for price points that a lot of my packages are, than be like, okay, crapshoot, let's see how many of these numbers turn out, But I will say this, when I first started, I didn't have the confidence, the systems, and all the know-how to be able to find my ideal clients as well, if we're being realistic. I really learned a lot of skills over time to have it as fine-tuned as it is now. So for those who are listening who are beginners, so you're still struggling with getting the right people, there's not necessarily anything wrong with booking a lot of calls, especially if you're trying to perfect your sales technique. But what I would say is, no matter what thing you're offering, whether it's a free coaching session or a sales call, or what I like to call an assessment, kind of a shorter version of a coaching call or a consultation kind of, whatever it is, the thing that's not cool is to dress it up as anything that it's not. I don't care what it is. Just be clear about what it is from the beginning, because you can use free sessions and at the end have a very transparent system for converting that into a sales conversation, being clear about what they were going to get in that free session the whole time. So, at different stages of your business, you might be looking to book more calls than less, but while you're working on getting more pinpointed to find that ideal client. But I think the big thing in sales is just be transparent, keep it conversational, real, down to earth. And if something's on your mind, find a great way to say it with finesse. And you'll be golden. Cool.
And I find that this is also applicable in other areas of marketing too, not just with sales. Like I use this same theory on my webinars. If there's going to be a pitch at the end, I tell them at the beginning. Yeah.
Don't hide it.
Right. Exactly. Be transparent.
And that's it. But now I'm going to offer you something. Yeah. Nobody likes that. It's bait and switchy.
Exactly.
Right?
All right. So your tip number one here is really just to be transparent in your sales and let people know up front what to expect, what the real intention of this session is about.
Yes. Right from the beginning, give them an overview and tell them this is what the session is. And don't forget to say, I'm understanding this. Is that true? It's really nice when you use language to be able to check in with someone. Some people have a really hard time saying how they feel unless you give them that opportunity. So That's why I word it the way that I do.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. So the second one that I think is really cool, these are the two different questions I ask during a sales call that I think are often skipped.
Mm.
For instance, you might be used to being on a sales call, asking somebody, what's going on in their business, then figuring out what their challenges are. That's very typical and that's great. But then as soon as you as the coach or whatever business you're running, as soon as you realize this person is an ideal client based on what they've told you, you're like, okay, great. I'm going to tell them about my package.
Mm.
That's a mistake I see a lot of the time, because oftentimes, even though you've realized this has the potential to be a great fit, you can't make that decision for someone. And when you try to do that in sales, that's when you get pushy and convincing.
Mm.
So what you actually need is to be asking questions that make it conscious to the potential client that this is a great fit as well, so that they can be the person to powerfully make that decision and then want to stick with it once they make it. So instead of doing that premature marriage proposal where you figure out what they want, what their challenges are, and now spring your program on them, after I get through those questions and I'm pretty clear, and I take quite a bit of time to learn about this person.
Right, me too.
I'm not afraid to take more time, Then I go on to these two questions. One of them is asking how committed they are to the process, and the other is asking how urgent the outcome they desire is while working with me. And when I talk about urgency, I'm not looking for someone to be frenzied or desperate, but I am looking for someone to have a pretty high level of passion about what they do and wanting to do it now. Because anyone who's an entrepreneur and anyone who's listening to this probably knows that we don't start out as entrepreneurs because we think we're going to get rich quick, or that it's going to be the easiest thing, or that it's not isolating, or any of those things at times. I think everybody who has great success as an entrepreneur is putting their heart and soul into something they really love and care about. And if I don't hear that in somebody, it's not worth it. You drag them in, you drag them around. That's what my mentors told me, and they were right.
Yeah.
So that's something that I usually ask. And then I also ask about, like I said, their commitment level.
How do you word these questions exactly?
Great. I'll do that. So let's pretend I'm going to ask about commitment first. I might say, okay, Amanda, I feel like I've got a really great picture of where your business is and what you're struggling with. The question I like to ask a lot of clients is, how committed are you to this process? I'm really the kind of coach who's available to work with clients who have such a high commitment level that when the going gets tough, and it will, you don't feel like you want to throw in the towel. If you've been an entrepreneur for long, you know just how hard this can be some days. And I'm not looking for somebody who feels like their passion and commitment is going to peter out the first time things get rough. Is that you? So that's
you can tell that you're a sales coach and you're really good at sales because you can just like regurgitate like this stuff. It just like comes out of your mouth. You don't even have to try. You got your little spiels. They work. I love it.
It's cool. So, I mean, and it's not just necessarily one question, but you'll see this is a time when, for me, it feels very natural for me, and I mean every word, and I do. That's why I'm also a good salesperson, because I feel very passionate and I'll say exactly what I think on the phone with finesse, right? With tact. But it's really about making sure in that moment, all of a sudden, I think what happens, even if it's subconscious to the potential client, they're like, ooh, they like feel the fact that they're going to have to perform at a higher level. They have to step up to a more empowered version of themselves who starts taking more responsibility. When you start asking questions like this, the feeling and the dynamic gives them this feeling of, if I work with this woman, things have to change, because I can feel myself changing right now.
Yeah, I remember having conversations with coaches like that when I started out, and it gives you butterflies because you know that they're going to empower you to do bigger things than you ever thought you would do or that you could do. And those questions, they're indicative of how you perform as a coach, how serious you are as a coach.
And what you're not willing to stand for, right? And I mean that in the best of ways. If I say I'm available to coach this kind of person, what it means is I'm not available to coach anyone who has a commitment or an urgency level any lower than that. And it's true, I'm not. And there's no joking around, even though I actually am a total prankster and I love having a good time. My clients, we laugh all the time. But the fact is, in that moment, I'm not really effing around. It's not fun for anyone to bring on a client who's kind of half-assing it, right?
Right.
And we want our clients to get good results. So I do the same thing with the urgency. I might say, similar to that question I asked you about commitment, Amanda, in terms of your urgency. And again, Amanda, I'm not saying I want you to be frenzied or desperate. That's not the energy that gets clients or builds a business. I want you to have this level of passion where you feel like, oh, it's my time is now. There's no reason to wait. If you're kind of sitting here and you're like, in a couple months I'll get to it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It just means we're not a good fit.
Right.
So is your urgency level high?
You know what I love about the way that you word things is you can tell that there's no judgment in their answers.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I love that because there are a lot of sales professionals and sales coaches who
Yes.
you can tell in the way that they talk about sales, in the way that they handle their calls, that they are completely judgmental of the answers that people give if it's not the answers they desire.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had those experiences, right, where we're on the phone and we feel like, gosh, I got to get this answer right. Otherwise, I'm doing something wrong in my business or I won't have success. And to be completely transparent, when I was first figuring out sales, I'm sure I accidentally used more fear tactics as well. It can be scary to be an entrepreneur when you don't have a lot of cash flow and you're really hoping that person will say yes. And it's easy to default to some of these tactics because we've been taught so many things. So I think there's even a lot of really well-meaning people who probably do have the skills to be great at sales who go to those kinds of tactics because maybe they haven't yet realized the power of complete transparency and genuine caring for your potential client, right?
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people giving answers that are not your ideal answers. All it means is that they're not your ideal clients, and they'll go off and they'll find their ideal coach, and you'll go off and you'll find a different ideal client. And that's completely fine. It's like
the
dating.
Beauty of the way the world works.
It's like dating. Sometimes you have to go through the wrong partner to find the right spouse.
I could not agree more. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So tip number 1 is be transparent in your sales and let them know upfront what the call is really about. Tip number 2 was to really ask these questions that help them step into a more empowered state on the calls and really get clear on whether they're the right fit for you or not. Like, what is their commitment level? What is their urgency in solving this problem? Ask those questions. They're scary, but you got to ask them. What would you say is your third tip?
So number 3, I wanted to zero out a little bit because I think even though so many of us want help with sales, I think that sales is one piece of getting that client. And in today's world, especially as an online entrepreneur, I think a lot of people I talk to feel overwhelmed about knowing what to do to actually get to that point when they're on the phone with somebody. Like, where should they be spending their time? What should they be doing? I had a heck of a time at the beginning just figuring out, like, what should I be doing to be having success right now? Nothing's working. And I remember this one day I was on the phone with my coach and I was like crying to her. I literally said these words: I'm working so hard. I don't even have time to wash my face every day. And she was like, I know on the other side of the line, first of all, she like felt disgusting and then didn't say that. But then second of all was like, what are you doing every day? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. So I got off the phone and I like freaked out and cried and had another panic attack.
Did you wash your face?
No, I didn't. And then I like calmed down a little bit. And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, wait, like, yeah, what do I actually need to be doing to be getting results? Like, what would actually get me results? And I'm going to give you, this is my third tip. There's 5 things to focus on, and they are broader, more general things. But even if you know these 5 things, it's going to start to be really easy for you to identify whether or not what you're doing is what I call money-making task, right? So number 1, I do believe, whether you think it's woo-woo or not, that 85% of the game is about keeping your mind in the game. And I think, especially, I work with a lot of women, and I think it's so easy for women and men probably to psych themselves out about this thing we call entrepreneurship. You must have some kind of thing you do on a daily basis to keep you in a state of believing this is going to happen and being calm so that you can see the opportunities that are showing up every single day. And they are. I don't care who you are. So I consider keeping your mind in the game to be the biggest money-making task you possibly have. I don't care how long it takes you each day, just some kind of practice. I have one and I can do it in 10 minutes or I could do it in 2 hours.
Yeah,
But
you say keeping your mind in the game. For me, it's keeping my focus on the game. Like I know when I'm in the middle of a launch or like a really big numbers goal that I set for myself.
yeah.
And that, especially with launches, people's minds will get all scattered and they'll like their emotions will go up and down. I know for me, every single day, when I'm in the thick of it, I've got to wake up and I've got to put my head on straight so that I can focus on the launch and forget everything else and really have essentialist thinking when it comes to the task at hand.
Definitely. I could not agree more. So that's number one. Number two, 2 and 3 are big ones. I'm going to tell you them both at the same time. One is building your online community. If you're an online entrepreneur, building your audience, building your online community. And number 2 is nurturing that community. Anybody who's really fantastic at business knows that having incredible relationships is a huge part of this. And we've all heard the know, like, and trust thing because it's true. And so if you don't have a community of people who want to partake in your services or your products and you don't have a relationship with them, then regardless of whether or not you can get a few sales here or there, I don't actually see anybody building a pretty incredible, long-lasting business that has longevity. So anything you can do to be building your community and anything you can do to be nurturing that community is great. So if you are designing some free content to get people on your list, if you're growing your Facebook group because you like using that, if you are, doing an interview for a podcast and like people are going to get a link, those are all examples of tasks. And then to nurture those people, delivering free content and giving good tips. That's the big thing. Going and doing maybe some video or a Facebook Live, creating a podcast where you're giving good tips as well, mailing your list on some kind of regular basis to start getting that consistency. Those are all examples of then nurturing the list, right?
This actually, the reason why I love these tips in particular is it goes back to what I tell my listeners all the time. You guys should remember this, as I always say, the way that you make money or accomplish a task in business is you create an offer and then you send traffic to it. So you've got to have something to sell and then you have to have people to sell it to. But it's not just about the amount of traffic. It's also about the quality of the traffic. You have to have the traffic and it has to be the right traffic. So you build your traffic, you nurture your traffic, and then you put the offer in front of it. So that's what she's saying here is you've got to build up your community, which is your traffic. You've got to nurture your community. So make sure it's the right traffic. That way when you put the offer in front of them, whether that's the sales call or it's the actual paid offer, they buy.
Yeah, and you're gonna love 4 and 5, Amanda. So 1 is mindset, 2 is build that community, 3 is nurture that community, and guess what? Number 4, you got to start making an offer somewhere, right? Bingo! And here's the thing. Amanda already knows this, I'm sure, right? You've already seen this, but I can't tell you how many people. I had this client talk to me. She's like, I didn't make very many sales last week. And I was like, well, what did you offer? And she's like, well, I didn't really make any offers. And I was like, well, come on. Now, I'm not the kind of person who's going to tell you to be spammy all the time. Like, it really is. Some of us have learned 75% being social and building relationships, 25% promotion, or whatever you've learned about it, to make sure, again, that you're nurturing a lot of the time. You're not just saying, buy this, especially to your list or just anywhere. But you do have to be making an offer. Maybe it's time on a sales call. Maybe it's the new sales page you designed that you're driving traffic to. Maybe it is, offering some free calls to your list or somewhere on social media. These are all ways that you're getting your stuff in front of people. Or maybe you're doing a webinar and you're going to pitch at the end of that. I mean, they're all different ways to make the offer, but you've got to have something out there that people can say yes to. And then, of course, number 5 is just to work on perfecting your sales. I'm talking about sales. How could I not have sales in one of my things? This is again one of the biggest bottlenecks for people for reasons we've already discussed. People are afraid of being pushy, salesy. They're afraid to make an offer. Well, they don't have a community. They're not nurturing it.
It's kind of like if you're. It doesn't matter if you have an offer if you don't have traffic. Similarly with the sales calls, it doesn't matter if you get the calls if you don't know how to convert them. And it doesn't matter if you know how to convert them if you don't know how to get them. You really have to have both of those pieces in order for it to be working.
Yeah. And the cool thing too is this. Maybe you don't want to do anything one-on-one. Maybe you're not really a service-based entrepreneur in that way, right? It's not just about perfecting your sales call. Maybe it's about you making sure that your sales page is great. Maybe it's about learning how in those emails going out to really create messaging that's having people say, I need that. I want to buy that. Not just, oh, that sounds nice, but I'm not paying for it. That's what's happening to a lot of people, right? So, and if you're on a webinar, do you know how to structure it and at the end do a pitch where you're converting a certain amount of people each time that you can get done the clockwork? So whatever your version of sales is, it needs to be happening well. 5, the offer needs to be there. 4, you've got to have a relationship with them. 3, you've got to have people to have a relationship. 2, and your mind's got to be in the game. 1.
Yes, I love it. And I like doing recaps, so you just did it for me. Thank you.
I'm like super organized person over here, so.
Oh, you're such a nerd. I love it.
I do too.
All right, now, Melissa, I know that these steps have gotten you many a clients in your time on as an online business owner, and I know that your clients are really successful with this, but our audience, they might have some things they gotta flesh out here. So for our nerdpreneurs who are listening, who want to get an A+ for effort, and they're gonna take that extra step to look you up online, can you make it a little easier on them? Where can they find you? What's the gift that you have for us today?
Sure. So I'm actually sharing a 5-part training. It's pretty cool. It's called Book Your First Paying Clients. So what's really cool is that those 5 steps I just shared, which are mindset, building community, nurturing, offers, and sales, the training is actually broken down so that I go more in depth about those 5 pieces. So I know for a lot of us, we're like, oh, what do I have to focus on again? Well, if you go watch the 5-part training series called Book Your First Paying Clients, every day of the training is about it's good, really clear stuff. And day 5, which is sales, I actually take you through my entire process, not just the opening and those 2 pieces of urgency and commitment. I walk you through my entire structure of all sales calls that I do. It's not scripty. It's just a really cool structure. So that's what the training is. It's about exactly how to spend your time to book your first paying clients or your next clients if you've already got a bunch. And I think you can find that at melissapharr, my name.com, / book your first paying clients. And then another / a
dash AGP. Yeah.
Dash AGP. Thanks for doing that.
Sure. melissapharr.com / book your first paying clients dash AGP. And if that was too much for you to follow, go to the show notes and the link will be there. Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, Nerdpreneur Nation, there you have it. Our sales superhero has swooped in to save the day. Woo! To book your first paying clients or next paying clients, head on over to melissapharr.com / book your first paying clients dash AGP to grab her 5-part video training. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's so fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And thank you guys, everyone, for being here and for listening. We hope that you learned a lot. We can't wait to hear where these tips take you. And we'll catch you next time on Market Like a Nerd. Have a nerdtastic day, guys. Bye.